Yep.
Hello. We're live, but I don't know. Anybody? I don't think anybody's watching. It's okay. I'm just recording for the hell of it. Why not?
All
It's the
good.
it's my baby daddy America's birthday, so I figure I might as well celebrate it.
So, this is kind of interesting. Orthodox Traditionalist Publications is working on this thing. I just posted about it because he's posted about it. It says the OTP, the Orthodox Traditionalist Publications 2025 Annual Chronology of World Orthodox Humanism, updated as of July 4th, 2025, is now over 60 plus pages. So far, the jurisdictions with multiple occasions of documented heretical ecumenism are the Moscow Patriarchate, the Ecumenical Patriarchate, Roman Patriarchate, Antioch, Serbia, Jerusalem, Antiochian, New Calendar's Church of Greece, Albania, Goarch, the GLC, Antioch, and Serbia. So, it's kind of interesting that, no one's actually ever done this before. Like, we document it, but it's never been like in an official publication in one place like that. I don't think. You know what I mean?
And what?
So what?
Sorry, I hit the wrong button. What is that publication?
Orthodox Traditionalist Publications. It's Subdeacon Nectarios, who was formerly with Father Peter Harris and the Orthodox Ethos team. He's like an
Oh,
editor
weird.
for them.
That's pretty weird. So he used to be with them. Now he left them.
Yeah, yeah, and like he brought all this like insider information when he joined True Orthodoxy. So he had like private conversations with Father Peter Harris, and how
So
that
they really don't like that guy. I'm guessing.
no, they hate him probably worse than all of us, right?
Because he knows,
And
and I think that's what they're trying to prevent. They're trying to prevent like anybody. Like I think that's why they vet so hard online right now.
well,
If I
that's
had to
why
guess.
he ended up, you know, um, jumping ship, is because he's seen how dishonest and grimy these guys were towards true Orthodox. Like, he was like, this is unbelievable. Like, what? I can't even believe the things they're saying and doing in order to cover this up. And it got to a point where he said, it's just like,
So
you know,
he probably has a really good idea of like maybe some of the political angles that could be a part of this. And I
yeah,
just and I think that it's important to mention politics, not because it's like ultimately important, but I think that's how most people are funneling into the church. It's a overtly political
absolutely.
connection there.
Well, the thing with it is, and it's like I was watching the Catholics today, sort of talking, but they're all defending the Pope for saying that we have the same God as Jews and Muslims. Well, the world Orthodox are doing the same thing, and there's a few that aren't, right? But they're just being met with this issue where it's like, either I'm going to speak against my bishops in my jurisdiction, or I'm going to, go along with it. So, and either way, it's not a great position to be in, you know. Um, it's just strange, man. Like, after a while, you kind of get tired of, having to defend it, I think. And I think that's what happened with him. He just got tired of it. Like, this is the, how do I even make sense of this, after a while? And then, being at the heart of it too, where it's like, what the situation with like Father Peter Harris is, he's set up on monastery property by, you know, Goarch. So he has to defend the ecumenists to a certain degree to keep his house, you know.
Yeah, and I don't want to make any claims, but like my experience with other priest, and I think this is kind of like, I mean, it's obvious that this could be a wedge in modern times because before, there's always been disputes over land and stuff, but now everything is like wishy, like everything's chartered by the government and all this. So my point is that, like the thing is this, like when you take a vow of poverty to be a priest or whatever, then you kind of become subject to that thing for your livelihood. Like one of the priests I met, he had like 4 kids and basically destitute, even though he's like a priest for 20 years. You know what I mean? And so, basically, if he were to try to leave that church with nowhere to go, like I think you know, it would test his faith, I guess you'd say, right? And I think that's kind of like a world, like it makes sense that the devil would kind of put some of the people that are supposed to be the holiest in predicaments like that. Does that make sense, right?
Well, yeah. Well, that's this is there's a Father Nikolai, I believe his name is, or something. No, Father Nikita, and he was with Rokor when they went into communion with the Moscow Patriarchate. And he made the point, he said, it's either are you going to trust God that, he'll make sure you're all right, or are you going to fear man, you know, um, and go along with the apostasy and the heresy? It's like, we have two options, and the majority of them were just scared that they would lose their money and their position, and it's like they forgot the reason they became a priest in the first place. You know, it's like it's become a secular job almost.
Right.
It's no longer
Exactly.
about
Yeah.
the salvation of souls. It's a job now. You know.
Well, and again, the reason I talk about economics, which ironically is going to connect to some of the things that we're talking about in a very strange, direct way as well, in my opinion. I'm trying to think of how to put this, but you know, the economics have kind of put people in a position where, like, even a lot of people, like, just people in general or Christians in general, you know, it's questionable. Like, should they keep this job? Should they be a part of this, thing anymore? And like, I was in sales, right? And like, I didn't have a problem with selling things at a high price or anything like that. But when you start looking at how the financing is structured and stuff like this, right? Like, when you start, or like even buying a house at 4% interest over 30 years. I mean, that's like paying double price for a house. Like, should we be taking out loans, that just feed the beast per se? But that's the thing is like, see what I mean? Like there, and I just say that because like I think that the economics of a lot of this uh, are one of the biggest tricks to like get people to kind of accept things that they wouldn't otherwise accept and justify things they wouldn't otherwise justify. And I don't say that from like a position of like I'm above it, right? I'm just saying like I think that is a big part of what's going on right now, and
Sure, and
you know,
that this there was a conversation in like the old NFTU Discord when it was kind of like first out, and we were talking about this Orthodox wisdom guy, right? And it's like someone was like, well, like, it's easy for you to say like he has things to lose. And it's like, is it really easy for me to, what's that supposed to mean? Like, if you care about Christ and you care about your soul and you care about, the people that you're influencing, why would you knowingly lead them astray because of a financial issue? It just seems like, at least to me, it's like this is how the devil works. He convinces you not to have, you know, enough faith in God that He'll come through for you, right? It's
right,
like, it's like again, it's like this practicality issue where it's like we're so obsessed with what, like making sense of something, and it's like God will make sense of it if if you trust Him, even if it
Yeah,
doesn't make sense to you in that moment.
yeah,
You know
yeah.
what I mean? Like how
You know
you're going
what's
to
funny?
survive or
You,
whatever.
you know what's funny is like one of the reasons that like I know that marriage is, well, I would say that marriage can either be a sacrament for the devil or for God, but you
Right.
know, and I think people who are married will know what I mean. But one of the things about being married, for me, that was really interesting because it took me a very long time to get this. Like, on these streams, I'm the why guy, right? And I was famously not famously, but memed by some people who didn't like me because I, ask all these questions and stuff, right? And being with my wife, many years, and I used to always ask why all the time, right? And after years of dealing with me doing that, right, she would say, you know, it just gets to the point where she's like, really, like our relationship was fucked up, right? And I don't think that I was doing anything wrong, but she would say something to the effect of like, she's like, okay, she's like, stop asking why for everything. Like, you don't need to know. Like, it doesn't matter. And then, or something to the effect of like, uh, what's the other thing? Shit. It was like, oh yeah, like, okay, you're right, but now you're right, but nobody wants to be around you even though you're right, kind of thing. Does that make sense? Like,
No,
and
that's what we call
yeah,
super correctness a lot of times. It's like you can be
yeah,
right, not righteous, and then
exactly, yeah.
there's the aspect of this too. It's like, um, what was it? I just had it. I just had it, man. Dang. Um, no, but Saint Anthony, he asked God. He asked God. He's out in the desert, yeah, and he goes and he asks God. He says, "What, God? Why does bad things happen to good people? Right? Like, it doesn't make sense why you'd sort of allow that." And God replied to him, and he said, "Anthony, it wouldn't do you any good to know. Focus
Yep,
on your own
exactly.
salvation."
Yep.
And it's like that. The thing is like if you trust God and you know His ways are over your ways, um, then there's answers that He has for somebody that sometimes it's a bitter medicine, right?
Yep.
And like we don't understand the bitter medicine. Like we don't want suffering. We don't want
Right.
the pain that comes along with life. And it's like, well, like put yourself in the position of Christ. It's like that's what I try to do a lot is put myself in the position of Christ. Not that I am Christ or want to be like God or something. I'm saying like I want to be like Christ. So I try to put myself in that position. It's like, okay, the whole world's against you, and all you do is help people, and they don't understand, and they spit on you, and all this, and you just accept it, right? Um,
Well,
like God's not asking
but that,
why are you spitting on me, really. Like he does say it one time, but it's like a
well,
rhetorical way,
well,
you know.
exactly, and the thing, and that's kind of why I think that rhetoric and stuff like that matters because I think a lot of you know what the Bible is trying to impress upon you is like you know it's kind of like I put it like this, like when you actually have humility, and again, I'm not saying that I have it all the time. In fact, it's a big struggle for me, right? But
Right.
it does something to everything around you, right? It does change things around you, and whether people want to like admit it or not, it does affect them, right? And I think that like, and I've seen it in my own life, whether I'm doing it or other people are doing it. When you really have humility and like when other people are abusing you, right? And you have humility about it, it actually hurts
Yeah.
them far more than people really think of, right? Like I don't think people really take that under consideration, you know.
No, it changes things. It's like if you acquire, a spirit of peace, thousands around you can be saved. That's like a famous quote from Saint Seraphim of Sorrow, and that who I'm named after is Saint Macarius the Great, right? Well, when I took the name Macarius, I didn't really think about it until later on, but this has been a reoccurring theme within my own walk in the faith, and it's like you know I haven't always dealt with it as well as he did, but I've had people like slander and attack me because I tell the truth, you know, and I'm
Right.
not going to hold some party line, and I'm not going, I don't care, like I don't, I'm not going to make you feel good, or like even with true Orthodox, like my biggest problem sometimes has been with other true Orthodox, and it's because like I know what the church teaches because I study it, and a lot of times these guys aren't doing that. I'm not saying I'm better than them. I'm just saying like that's the case. Like they're not going to church, and but they want to like talk about ecumenism and the new calendar all day. You know what I mean? But they're not going to church themselves, and they're not. There's no spiritual thing going on here. You know what I mean? It's just like they like being true Orthodox because it's a solid argumentation point or something.
Well, it's almost like the super correctness thing that we're talking about in a
Absolutely,
sense too.
it's always
Right.
that, and like there's a royal path to that, about true orthodoxy. Like, there's if you have a zeal not according to knowledge, then it's not worth much. You know, we should have like we should understand why we have zeal for something. Um,
Right.
but with Saint Macarius, I'll give you an example of something. Saint Macarius is like accused by a woman of that he slept with her, right? It was like a young woman, not maybe in her 20s, 18, 20, something like that. It doesn't necessarily say. We just know that she's a young woman, and she accuses Saint Macarius of sleeping with her and getting her pregnant. Well, the whole town sort of starts, slandering him as this woman does, and they accusing him of this, and he doesn't say anything. He takes every bit of he makes things and then sells it, and then supports the girl and the child that's going to be born. It hasn't been born yet. Well, when the child's going to be born, she can't give birth for some reason. She's just kind of stuck in like birth pains, and she comes to the realization that the reason she's going through this is because she has slandered Macarius, and the only way for the pain to stop is if she admits the slander, right? And she says, well, actually I was sleeping with this person, and she didn't want anybody to know about this particular situation, I guess, so she blamed it on St. Macarius. So the whole town goes to go apologize to him, and like they beat him at one point over this, right? Like a bunch of people, they went to him and beat him up real bad. Well, they go to ask for his forgiveness. Well, he had some sort of clairvoyance. He knew that this had happened. Like God had revealed it to him in some way, and he left. He wouldn't even accept their apologies. You know what I'm saying? Like he didn't want to be exalted in any way, but like he endured that slander. You know what I mean? How many of us could endure, and not say a word, but that's like Christ, you know what I mean? It's like they're slandering him, and you just, Pilate asks him, it's like, like I have the ability to make sure you're not crucified right now. And like he's like, no, you only have uh, the power that my Father gives you from heaven. You know what I mean? Like it's like that's the kind of thing, though. It's like being silent in the face of like wrong sometimes. You know, just out of humility and out of I don't know. It's there's a supernatural thing to that. Um, because what the devil wants, I think, is for us to give into the passion, right? Like the hate and like meet whatever it is, like slander with slander, you know, and
Well, that
why,
well,
you
that's
know,
kind of why I put that like on the thumbnail for this. Like, and the name of the thing, I was like, "We was Jedi's and shit," and something like that, you know. And because they always say they have this like thing about like "May the Fourth be with you" and all this, right?
yeah,
Uh, and the reason I say that is like in that movie, I mean, or whatever, the Star Wars series or whatever, right? They always talk about like hate something starts with hate and hate leads to whatever and then it leads to suffering or whatever, but it's kind of
right.
weird because they invert some of the stuff, but in general,
Well,
like
it's
you
like
kind of
pushes dualism for one, you know, like the
right.
force, like but like their own equal opposing,
Yep.
yeah.
Yep. But you get the idea that they're talking about like there's some truth in it, but then they kind of twist it. Yeah, I
No, but
agree.
that is a good point. I mean, that is absolutely true. And as far as I know, like the films are very religious based. Like even like the ways the emperor and all of them are dressed is very like papist.
Yep.
Like
Yeah.
Catholic.
Well, and I think that the Jedi's are not the good guys for sure. Like I'm not saying that like but it's kind of like that's kind of one of the things where it's like in a weird way it's kind of like admitting like sometimes God uses the bad guys, quote unquote. And I think the Matrix is kind of similar where like you have like Agent Smith is he's not a good guy because he's not even a person, but the idea is like they use it's like God is using certain things, but again, it's like they put everything within a Gnostic framework, and I think that's really it's not really the story itself; it's the framework in which they tell the story, right? I think that's kind of the
Well, what's
danger
kind
of
of
a lot of
interesting about the Jedi Council is in those movies too. I think this is kind of interesting. Is they kind of lose their way, like they get too prideful, you know,
yeah,
and they're like, well, the Sith could never return, and
right,
and like their hypocrisy kind of is what caused Vader, or Anakin to go to the dark side, you know.
right,
So he kept poking the beast until he loses it. Of course, he's gonna end up, feeling disenfranchised, and you know, he gets a position of master, and or gets to be on the council, and he's not a master. You know what I mean? All this stuff. It just, and they don't trust him, and I don't know. It's like they were just as responsible for what happened. I feel like as Vader going to the dark side, it felt like they were pushing him towards it. Right.
and that's why, and that's the thing is like Yoda kind of like tried to. I mean, I think not Yoda, but somebody tried to intercede. I can't remember who it was, but then stop it, and they're like, but yeah, and they made like a practical decision. Yes, but we need him for what you know what I mean. And so, like they kind of like, or the, you know what I mean. They kind of, and I think the thing is like, I think it's kind of like this weird thing. And like I know televised apocalypse, he really knows the story very well. But it's like you kind of watch the thing. It's like when they find him, he has a pure heart, right? But that's the thing is like they didn't take into account the trauma of all these things and like how you know you just give power to somebody who's been traumatized, like they're not going to know how to handle it. You know what I mean? Like it's just not
Well,
something
they
that.
put him under, Qui-Gon Jinn as well, and it's like, no, not Qui-Gon, but Obi-Wan, and it's like Obi-Wan's was more like a brotherly figure. You know what I mean? Maybe if he had like a fatherly figure, like a Qui-Gon, then things wouldn't have went that way, and that's kind of
Right.
like the duel of
Yep.
the fates type thing, right? But what's funny about Star Wars, I think, though, like what's a trip about it, I think, it almost presents antichrist as the savior. In the end, it's like Vader ends up saving. You know what I mean? It's weird, dude.
Yep.
Like, I don't
Saving
know.
the hero, and then the hero becomes like the shell of his former self, and
It's dude, like that. It's kabbalistic and occult. Very all of that stuff is, man. But most of our media is, I'm not even sure, like they're aware of it to a certain degree, but things like that aren't taken seriously in our culture. Like, we don't even consider the spirit behind things anymore.
yeah, no, it's absolutely, and I think that's the thing of like for me, what really bothers me is when I see, especially like kids, I can understand, they just see like lightsabers and they hit the stuff together and stuff like this, and like I watched all those movies too, and I thought they were cool for the like martial arts side of it, I guess you'd say,
Right.
or the action, but like I was always very suspicious because I had a very strong like Christian belief since I was a kid. But I never like went around and preached to people like it's the devil, or I didn't feel the need to do that. But I was like, I didn't want to like feed into the narrative too much, if that makes sense,
Dude,
right?
you want to
Yeah.
know something crazy? Like, all right, so you know how Mel Gibson went to Mount Athos recently, and he was pictured with like those monks, right?
Yep.
Okay, so like Espig Minu posted a post, and it went through like all these canons of why you can't, um, like an actor cannot act as Christ or the saints according to the canons of the church, right?
Right.
Like, it says like literally like you can be excommunicated, or like you
It's
can't
kind of like
take
when they
part.
say like don't. It's kind of like when they say like don't make an image of like Muhammad. Like everybody gets up in arms, like oh that's ridiculous. But I'll be honest, like I never really watched Passion of the Christ because I thought it was like somewhat sacrilegious to like put him. Do you know what I mean? To, like put that in film, like I don't know. I mean, I'm not saying
No,
like it
it
was
it
like the
is
intent
like
was bad,
according
but
to them, but it's even worse than that. Like, so he didn't base the film off of the Gospels. He based it off of these visions. This Catholic, I guess a nun or a woman or something named Maria del del Torta or something like that. But she had all these visions, and she tried to convince the Catholic Church to put her visions as like a part of the New Testament. um
okay,
Dude,
interesting.
and like I guess like the book fell off a shelf while he was in this library, and then he picks it up and then starts reading it,
You're good. You're
and
good.
says, I'm gonna make a film of it.
Right.
um
I'm
and
not
like,
surprised. I'm not surprised. Like that makes a lot of sense, honestly.
well, from what I could tell, like after the schism, the Roman Catholic Church had, since they had no connection with the earlier saints anymore, and they kind of give into scholasticism, they had like all these like prelest visions, because they don't have a doctrine on spiritual deception within Roman Catholicism. Like, they have
Really
exorcisms, right? But they don't have like, they don't even have the concept of like an exorcism could be false, like the demons could play tricks on you during an exorcism.
interesting.
They're gonna
That's
kill
very
you.
bizarre. I would
Yeah.
think that would be like the number one thing you would.
Well, like, all right, so
Yeah.
they do
Right.
have like some concept of spiritual deception, but nowhere near like the Eastern or like even Western Orthodox understanding of these things, right? It's just like completely deleted. I don't know why that is. I'll give you an example of something, because I think it's really important what I'm talking about right now. Like, not that I'm special, but the subject, right? So, um, let me see, because I have something here that's a trip, man. You're gonna trip on this. Okay, here it is. This is a person that wrote their PhD on late medieval Roman Catholic mystical texts, and he says this is a major reason why I chose to become Orthodox instead of Roman Catholic. When you know the tradition well, you become incredibly disconcerted by what you see in it. Benign women mystics describing being caressed by Christ, visions of melting into the Trinity, There's no essence energy distinction, so RC mystics articulate a literal merging into the Godhead. Even accounts of making love to Jesus by the likes of a Mechtild of uh, Medigberg and Hedgwick, even classics of RC spirituality like the Imitation of Hedgwick, um, or the Imitation of Christ, which begins with the necessity of repentance, humility, etc. All good things go off on the deep end in its final chapters, describing the mystical union with Christ through erotic terminology. Eroticism, speaking for Jesus, annihilationism, the loss of self identity. These are all common tropes of late medieval Roman Catholic mysticism. When I became acquainted with the Orthodox doctrine of prelest, I could finally make sense of what was wrong with all this, and I haven't looked back since. So that was like a somebody who got their PhD studying that, like late medieval Roman Catholic mystic. Um, but yeah, like that's the kind of tradition we're talking about, where these people will have visions and they don't test the spirits at all. There's no testing of the spirits. It's just accepting whatever vision they see, whatever miracles going on. And then, like, okay, now you got a guy who takes a pre-less book, that's these are visions from the devil. He makes a movie out of the visions from the devil. Everybody's jumps on the bandwagon, like, oh, this is great, like this is really all about Christ and all this stuff. But then it gives people a depiction of what Christ might look like. But really it's going to be what antichrist, like now they have some idealized image of Christ, an idol, rather than really who Christ is. So this gives into the spiritual deception in the long run. um,
Yeah, I'm here. Just keep going. I got to do something. Just keep going for a second.
Yeah, I mean, that's basically like what here's another concept of this. I'll go to the exorcism thing. So, um, no, I'm not saying that it's only a Catholic, phenomenon. I think you have a lot of World Orthodox that fall into the same type of prelest. Um, so it says, this is from Orthodoxy and the Religion of the Future by Father Seraphim Rose. He says sometimes the demons work miracles in order to lift into pride the man who believes himself to possess the miraculous gift, and so prepare him for more a miraculous fall. They pretend that they are being burnt up and driven out from the bodies where they were dwelling through the holiness of people who they truly know to be unholy. In the gospel we read, there shall arise false Christs and false prophets. And now, so Orthodox Ethos put out an article on this elder Ephraim, and this elder Ephraim supposedly, he went to some church and there were some girls sitting there cross-legged, and a demon ends up talking through her and telling them how the old calendarists are evil, and it says something like, I'm the demon that inspires the old calendarist or something. And then the demon gets up through the girl and gives a sermon to the church. Like, it's absolute insanity, dude. And so I brought that up to Father Peter Harris because he put out this article on this stuff, and I was like, oh, so now demons are giving sermons through girls on on how the old calendars are, the demon inspires the old calendars, and you believe the demon, you know. But I was like, yeah, it's like obviously whatever it is, this is talking about. Sometimes the demon work miracles in order to lift in the pride of the man who believes himself to possess the miraculous gift, and so prepare him for a more miraculous fall. Like it's so obvious. And but they elder worship these guys, so it's like, oh, this old man, we consider him a saint because the ecumenical patriarchate has canonized him because he told people to stay in communion with the ecumenists. Uh, when it's clear, like, you look in the details of this stuff, it's like these people were losing their minds, man. They were not holy men. They were very confused. Let's see. I got something here.
Saying that, by the way, I remember what's his name. I remember him talking about that girl or whatever, and he was like
Oh, that
seeming like,
article.
yeah. Well, I remember Peter Here's talking about that and like endorsing that thing actually.
Yeah, yeah. Well, see, that came out of Canada, and there was somebody, there's like a Father Constantine Zizov or something like that, and he wrote the article, and then Father Peter Harris puts it out, and of course, it's like a gotcha to the old counters, but it's so absurd that anybody with a brain could see like this is pre-less. But why I confronted Father Peter Harris with it, and I told him, I said, this is clearly like what Father Seraphim Rose is talking about in the Orthodox religion of the future, where the demons will lift a man into pride, making them think they have some miraculous gift to drive out demons or something. And you know what he told me? He said blasphemy. He said blasphemy. He said it was blasphemy that I pointed it out, that I said that his supposed elder was in prelest. And they tend to forget in the Gospels it tells us even the elect can be led astray. And time again, when you look at this particular elder and the miracles he performed, it's always weird stuff like knowing where some lost thing was, or like telling a girl, the answers to her homework or something. It's like all these miracles, um, which is like, miracles aren't a bad thing in themselves, but Christ wasn't big on just doing miracles all the time. Like he did miracles, don't get me wrong. But when the Pharisees asked him to perform a miracle, it's like the only miracle you'll see is the sign of Jonah. It's like 3 days and 3 nights in the belly of the beast, sort of thing, you know. Um, but yeah, we're always taught to question, like, if a miracle is truly of God, test the spirits. There's not testing any spirits here. They're just like the charismatic movement or something like that. They want miracles more than they want truth. So that's why that like that's why they like canonize all these supposed saints too. Um, because it's for political reasons, and do it's just it's nutty, man. I don't know. And that's why you have all these guys talking about like World War III, and like there's this Morpho guy, Neo something of Morpho. He's talking about how there's going to be World War III, and he was, Elder Paisios was his elder, and Elder Paisios was clearly in Prelest. If you read those in Prelest and then compare them in contrast to like the things that guy was into, it's nuts.
Yeah, well, I mean, it doesn't kind of, it does make total sense what you're saying because, you know,
I don't know. I mean, I could, like, I'll just put it this way. Like, if you look at things in a political sense, or like in a, I guess you'd say what people would refer to as like a reality-based sense, it is very hopeless. And what I mean by that is like, you know, like, like when I go on TikTok or I go on everywhere, like the amount of people that are supporting knowingly or unknowingly, like this kind of network that we're talking about here.
Uh,
Um, I think the only word that fits is legion. Does that make sense? Like, you know what I mean?
well, that's what it is.
Like, and it's weird that so many of these people seem to be on the same wavelength. You get what I mean?
Well,
And
yeah.
yeah,
Well, there was a
and I mean,
guy.
it's so apparent that the spirit of whatever is, very prevalent. I guess you'd say,
Well, there's a guy. He had a weird channel called Semen Retention, and he was a follower of Paisios. And it was so strange the things this guy would talk about. He would talk about all these miracles and prophecies and um, all this stuff. And I'm just thinking, like, this is pretty less like clearly. And if you were to point it out, of course they would say, "Oh, you're just a schismatic," you know. But that's what like people like Saint Nectarius dealt with by Meletius Maltekis, the Freemason. Like he was persecuted because he stood up against reforms, and so that we can't just blindly follow the patriarch if he's giving in to some the ecumenistic ideology. And it's become just like Saint Anthony the Great said that you know uh, people would point at someone and say, "You're mad, you're not like us," when they're actually sane. To be sane now is to be mad in the eyes of the world. Everything's sort of flipped on its head, and it's unfortunate, like but people want to be deceived. They have itching ears. There's a level to it where people want miracles, and in their want for miracles, God's going to allow them to go astray because their heart's not in the right place. So
well, and I think that's one of the challenges of, you know, when you start getting closer to the truth, it starts getting more painful how easily deceived you are as well, right? And so then it kind of forces you to stop judging other people in a sense. But at the same time, like, it can make you feel disgusted. You know what I mean? So I think that's kind of one of the
well, there's
challenges.
a difference between like a hypocritical judgment and a righteous judgment. Um, right. So a righteous judgment is when we as Christians stand up and say, "Well, this is an issue and this is wrong, and this isn't a teaching of the church," and like that's acceptable. But if it's something like um, that you're doing too, or something like I don't know, like there's levels to it, and there's the right way to go about something, and then there's a wrong way to go about something, and to discern that, we have to be partaking in the grace of God, and to some extent. And if we're not, then we don't. Everything's blurred, and everything's sort of, there is no truth, uh, you know, and that's what happens because if you're dark, you can't distinguish color. You know what I mean? If everything's just sort of dark, so. Uh, but I mean, we're all susceptible to our own hang-ups and our own delusions and different things like that. But like if we're actively trying to be present and participating in unseen warfare, and like that's like from the very beginning of my walk into orthodoxy, like that, this is something that I've tried to pay attention to, like, and it's a lot of praying for discernment as well. And like, I found myself in situations where like I seen things um, that a whole group of other people weren't seeing, and then get slandered because of I'm seeing this thing because they want to believe it or whatever it is. Like they want to be deceived in some way and give in to this hate or pre-list or whatever it is. And then now I'm the bad guy for pointing it out. Um, and it's kind of rough. I mean, but it comes, like, again, it comes with the territory. It is what it is. Uh, can't do much about it. So just keep it moving, pray and keep it moving, I guess. This was a big problem with Father Sarah from Rose and the HTM people. Like, he sort of pointed out, zeal not according to knowledge. The super correctness, or the correctness disease, as he called it. Um, when he pointed this out, they were getting letters and slander, and they're still attacked to this very day by people who have given into their passions and are in this pharisaical kind of state where the demons have inspired them to a certain degree, and they don't want sort of a balanced or like a narrow, like the middle path, like a royal path way of thinking. They want an extreme because it's more fun that way or something. Like, it's kind of, I don't know, dangerous.
I'm still here. Just keep, if you don't mind, just expound on that a little bit more. I'm just in the middle of I'm sitting around asking some questions about something. IRL.
All right, well, I'll be right back. I'll be right back in a second. I gotta get
Yeah,
some drink.
I have some stuff to tell you too, but I don't want to say it in front of everybody. So.
All right.
Yo, 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 I'm here. Oh, I didn't see you just now. Hold on one second.
Yo,
Hello?
yeah.
Oh, okay. I was like, shit, is this thing working? Yeah. Unseen was here, and then he had to go for a second, so he'll probably be back.
Oh, really?
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, but he was covering some good stuff, you know. Them Orto Bros. No, it's actually worse than that. Thank you. You want one? $8 each. No, kidding. I'm an entrepreneur at heart, you know. I'll get you one. Man. It's okay. Maybe you need it. Look, it matches my knife. That's why.
Oranges are my favorite fruit.
There you go, man.
Thank you. I appreciate
Should
that.
be. Have a good day. You too. That's fine. Yeah, that was interesting. I'm out at the mall where people go or something. And somebody's like, I like your oranges. I was like, all right, I'll get you one. He's like a 14 or 15-year-old kid or 13, something like that. It's funny. That kind of shit doesn't happen to me very often. So I was like, okay, might as well. I had to whip out my knife in public and shit. I should have whipped it out and went, Allahu Akbar! And I just.
I couldn't resist, man.
Do the dance.
Shit. That's funny. But yeah, it was funny. Now, the mall's kind of a trip, man. I don't go to the mall too often, but when I go, it's like I had to go drop something off, and then it's just a trip, man. Like today, on a day like today, it's actually like good weather and stuff, and the ladies are actually in a good mood, and that puts me in a good mood, and so. But yeah, I don't know. 4th of July, man. You proud to be an American right here in the USA. I wonder who's watching this right now. Apparently, there's somebody watching. But
Really?
it says one viewer, which is the most I've had all day. But
One watching. I think that's just one of us, honestly.
yeah, probably. Yeah, I spread the link a little bit, but please feel free to do it. This is not like a official stream or something. Probably when I get home, I'll switch over to like the Discord stuff because it's easier to present stuff, I think. But
Yeah, I'm thinking of going live later, or actually plan to.
yeah, well, yeah. If you have time, what I'll do is when I get home, I'll fire up because I have to go do a couple things at home anyway, and so I can just fire it up and review a couple things, and then you can go live or whatever you want to do. I don't care. If you want to go live early, you can too. I don't care. I'm not tripping. Like I just wanted to record something today. I was like, the vibe is good today, so I was like, let's do it.
Yeah.
It's like the first sunny day I've had in a month, pretty much. So I was like,
Yeah, I'm thinking of doing like some type of reading extravaganza or some shit.
Fuck yeah.
I might read. Yeah, I might read like about Jewish messianism, and then I'll probably read on Plato's Republic.
Nice.
And then I might switch over to John Locke, who influenced the Constitution of these fine United States.
White power. No, John Locke, my nick. No, no. No, it's funny. Like one of these girls that Pill Eater knows that does like these kind of weird. She's like one of them Hegelian girls or whatever was one of them. And like she's like she's posting in one of these like Twitter chats about like I just love John Locke. Oh my God, he's like makes me horny or something. And I'm like, oh my God, it's like
Wait,
he's just
what?
like I mean, like basic, not like exactly those words, but like in other words, like oh my God, he makes my brain orgasm. He's just the smartest person ever, and I'm just like, oh my God, like it's. And I started like trying to tear him down a little bit, and she's just like, "Oh my God, this is like unacceptable." And I was like, I was like, you'd be better off listening to like David Icke or like Stefan Molyneux than John. I mean, I'm not saying like John Locke was a dummy or anything. It's just more like, that he's like the end all be all of like. She was trying to say that he's like the end all be all of like virtue or some shit like that. And she's probably trolling to some extent, but I was just kind of like,
Where is this? Where is this happening?
on Twitter.
Good Lord. Yeah,
Yeah.
send me her profile. This is insane.
I mean, yeah, I definitely will. But it's like, but this is like the overeducated New York, you know, elite kids, and this girl's Asian, which makes it even weirder, right? But and she might even, I don't think she'll listen to this show, but she probably has seen my show once or twice, maybe, but maybe not. I don't know, but but it's just kind of like this is what these people talk about, and like, and it's like, I mean, I think it's to me, I think it's worth investigating all those things, but like I guess I don't know. When I think of John Locke, I think of someone who like is relevant in a meta sense, but it's not like like that was like halfway through the subversion, I guess you'd say. Like he's like a cornerstone of like,
He's
you know what I mean? Like
yeah, he's a cornerstone of like libtarbs.
right. Well, and these are supposed to be like conservative leaning, like
That's what's so funny about
yeah,
it is that
yeah.
he's literally a fundamental cornerstone of classical liberalism, and so much so that like I'm pretty sure he's mentioned by Kant.
Right. Really,
So
that's kind
like,
of funny. I didn't even realize that. It was pretty because the timeline to me, I didn't realize it was like these were contemporaries, basically, or almost
right.
contemporaries. It's pretty weird.
Yeah, like Locke lived like I think maybe like 100 years or 50 years before Kant or something like that. But yeah.
Well, when you say libtard, what do you mean? Is he like the one who basically
Like classical liberalism is the foundation of liberalism and the new left, right? So
right? So it's kind of like one of these things of like what I guess when you say classical liberalism, would you say that's more of an economic or a political theory or
I think it's political and economic, but it also has foundations in like epistemology, and also it's making a commentary on religion.
right?
Like Locke has like all these essays about like being a Christian, being being tolerant of people who aren't Christians.
Right.
I
So,
mean,
so he's basically like the first one to do like the mental jujitsu of like, let's redefine what it means to be a Christian
100%,
from
100%. Yeah.
the ground up, and just
Yeah,
pretend
and
like
like
1,500
yeah,
years didn't happen, essentially, right? Yeah, that makes sense.
yeah, and then like he's responding to Hobbes, right? So like
Leviathan.
yeah, so and Hobbes basically invented like government by consent.
Well, it's funny, like when you have someone like Pill Eater, who actually has read all of English history and stuff like that, he I think he rightly points out like the idea of consent is kind of like one of these like legalistic like nonsense words in a sense, which is like because like consent I don't know
Right.
exactly how he would describe it, but it's like one of these things where it's like it's kind of like an in time, in moment thing that doesn't actually hold any water long term, I guess you'd say. Like it's like one of these things like, okay, in the moment I consent, but then I can revoke it in the future. I could pretend it didn't happen. I could pretend I was under duress. I could say I was coerced. I could say, like it's one of these things where like it doesn't really mean anything essentially. Like I'm not saying that like rape isn't real. I'm just saying like
Well,
that
the slippery one is tacit consent. Because it's like, because you could expressly consent to something, but if you tacitly consent to something, and that is this concept,
like
within law,
you're born on this land, therefore you've consented to have like
because you
something happen
abide
to
by
you.
it's more so because you abide by the protection of this land. Therefore,
So it's kind of like it's kind of saying like, well, it's kind of like what do you call it in Islam, like a jizya or whatever. So it's almost like it's like an implied jizya where like you just happen to live here, and if you don't like it, you can leave or you can just like have
but
no
that's like
protections or something or.
but that's like express. This is like more like it's like like you shop at like like what I'm trying to think of is like, oh, like you shop at like Walmart, so you support like child labor or something, like, you know what I mean, like something like that, right? Where it goes into the like a weird category, right? And I think technology has a lot to do with that, right? Because we allow shit to happen because like what would it take to stop it? Like we'd have to like stop all the gears from moving, right? So it's like,
Right.
everybody just consents to.
Like to stop, like kind of like to stop child labor, you'd have to like go kill like a million people or something, right? Like it's like, okay, so like which one is worse, or it puts you in a moral conundrum, I guess you'd say. You know what I mean, like or whatever.
Yeah, and I forget who he like always mentions. There was like this guy that Pilliater always mentions that like talks about like tacit consent for like violence in society or whatever. And Sorelian violence. Remember that?
Yeah, it's Sorelian, I think. Yeah, so I'm
Yeah,
pretty
he's
sure.
like obsessed with that, right? He's like Sorelian violence, right? So yeah, that has a lot to do with that concept as well. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, and I pretty much agree with him on that point, just because like I think it's one of those things of like like I'm not like a might makes right person per se, but I'm saying like to ignore that that's kind of how things mechanistically operate is retarded, right? And I think that's kind of what people like Locke and Hobbes and people like that are trying to obfuscate from a Christian standpoint, right? Like that's my opinion, right? Like I think that's why I don't like them. Like they seem to be trying to obfuscate that. Well, might makes right, but we're gonna dress it up as if it's something other than that. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of what I'm, and that's why I point out to like a lot of what Andrew Wilson argues for is kind of like in the same vein. A lot of these people are just arguing might make right. They're just doing it in a very like sneaky way. In my opinion.
Yeah, it makes sense because they've succumbed to technical means, so they're just like, if you have those means, you can basically do whatever you want. So
And you really can't do anything against it unless you want to like basically put yourself in a moral conundrum, which you're already in anyways. That's the irony. Like, but I think that's like what that people won't touch Teddy K with the 100-foot pole because it's not necessarily that he's advocating for violence. I don't think. I mean, although of course he did some, but I'm saying that like it's more that he's just saying like you're basically in a state of violence whether you want to admit it or not. And I think that's the And again, that's why I like Stefan Molyneux, because he points it out in a poignant way. He just kind of says, well, kind of what you're saying, like, well, since we have the technology, we might as well use it because we can't. The evil of getting rid of it probably outweighs the probably quote unquote outweighs the evil of having it, right? And so, and that's kind of where I'm trying to drive the arguments towards. Like, let's have an argument about that. Like, is the evil of getting rid of it one to one or measure or even quantifiable with having it? And that assumes that we have a choice anyways, which it's arguable that we don't, right? So, like, could we even get rid of technology if we wanted to? Probably not. Probably not. Even if most people agreed, you probably still couldn't, right? Because necessarily people would starve. And again, Skrbina's idea of, like, let's just do it slowly. I think it's Skrbina, right? Like, let's just try to do it slowly, right?
Yeah, this is I guess a quote by Sorrell. He says, Marx supposed that the bourgeoisie had no need to be incited to employ force. But we are faced with a new and very unforeseen fact, a bourgeoisie which seeks to weaken its own strength. Must we believe that the Marxist conception is dead? By no means, because proletarian violence comes upon the scene at the very moment when conception of social peace claims to moderate disputes. Proletarian violence confines employers to their role as producers and tends to restore the class structure just when they seem on the point of intermingling in the democratic morass.
So, how would you rephrase that?
Well, it seems to be similar very much to Ellul's ideas, because he's saying that Marx was, basically right about several factors of the structure of a capitalist society, right? But he was wrong about the revolutionary impetus that would be supplied to those people that are part of that society. That's not going to be coming from the place where they think it's coming from.
Well, it sounds to me that there's a lock to Marx pipeline that people are ignoring.
Well, I mean, the entire Marx presupposes capitalism, right?
Yep.
So for Marx's entire dialectical, materialism to be worked out, there has to, you have to presuppose the existence of capitalist states, right?
Makes sense to me.
And that almost means you presuppose the existence of democratic states, pretty much, right?
So capitalism proposes democracy. Presupposes democracy. Communism presupposes capitalism. So,
And technology presupposes socialism. So it's like,
so pretty much, it's just another way to obfuscate that you don't really have much control over this shit, and the tools that we think we're using are subjugating us just as much as we're, And again, that's why I really like that George Washington quote about. Well, I can't remember what it was about, but fire is a dangerous master, or is like a dangerous servant and a destructive master, or something like that, or something like that. I can't remember the exact quote, but yeah.
Yeah, like the democratic or liberal system is grafted in to the technological system. or at least like how Lowell says. So it's like there's a much bigger thing that's like, and you got to enjoy this term grafted in. It's like how
Right, Paul. It's like very Pauline. Right.
Yeah.
Which I think is why you kind of focus on Paul, because it's like you said, it's like they're kind of use Paul as like this kind of like Trojan horse. Ironically,
Yeah,
he's from Troy. Ironically, right? See what I mean? This is what I'm
like have
saying
you
is
ever
like,
like have you ever seen grafting?
um, what do you
Like
mean?
it's like you take like part of a plant and you
Oh
mix
yeah,
it with
yeah, yeah,
another. It's
yeah. I've
crazy
seen that.
process.
Yeah,
Like is
I've
it like
seen some of the
it
people
seems
who
like
do that.
logically it shouldn't work, but it does.
Well,
Like
they've tried to do that with humans, where they take like a human's head. Well, they try to do it with dogs, but they try to do it with animals, I guess you'd say. Like they took a dog's head and sewed it onto a fucking other dog and try to see how long they could get it to live. And they've probably done it with humans too, if I had to guess. But they wouldn't admit to it, of course. But you know, but yeah,
yeah, I mean,
but I
there's
think.
probably like you could think like there's probably like kings who combine two kingdoms together as like a genetic lottery. I mean,
Well, I think that's what's happening all the time. I mean, I think, when you look at the political stuff going on, it's like they are kind of just trying to like, well, the Chinese Empire, we can make a deal with them and merge them into the Russian, and then we can merge the Russia into Israel and the Israel into America, and it's like I mean, it's not overt, of course, like that would defeat the purpose. But I think like World War One and Two was like a way to overtly just merge the EU, obviously, right? I mean, to me, it's like, we don't need a Germany or a France. Like this is dangerous. These people are wildly violent and technologically capable, and don't. And so, like, let's just build them up and let them destroy each other. I mean, you know what I mean? And then we'll just like merge all the leftovers into one thing called the EU, whatever that is, right? And then we'll just cause a war, and we'll say, well, oh, all these wars over here, these people need somewhere to go. Well, we have a nice little democratic socialist state for these people to come into. And again, you know what I mean? Like, that's what I'm saying. It's like my thing with like the immigrants or this or that. It's not necessarily like the people themselves individually. It's like, when you read the past 500 years of history in Europe, I mean, it's pretty obvious that and not only in Europe. I mean, all over the world. It's like somebody's trying to do some grafting, right? It's like there's no doubt about it. Like, so well, just graft a little something in here or a little something in here, and dress it up like it's a nice little cozy thing I'm doing here that's good for everybody. See if I got a bunch of tabs open from last night. So if you don't mind, what I'll do, let's switch over to Discord, because I have a lot of I have a
tabs.
lot of I have a lot of tabs open. Well, I can do it on here too. I can do it on here too. Maybe I should just do that, but nobody's watching, so I don't know. I feel like people should be watching this stuff. But I just wanted to keep this thing active, but shit. Yeah, let's just do it. Fuck it. Let's go to Discord if you don't mind, and then because I have all these tabs open, and it's pretty. I can just like switch in and out really quick, and I think the audio is a little clearer, maybe too. Because I'm going to switch to my computer. So let's see. We can stay on here for a second. Let me just set this up. I have too much shit open. How's your 4th of July going? You gonna go see some fireworks and shiznit? Oh, my
Yeah,
Discord is
probably
not
not.
loading. Probably not. I haven't been to like a real fireworks show in a long time. I don't really want to go because it's just too many fucking people like jammed into
Yeah,
a place.
that's why I don't want to go.
Like when I lived in New York, in like a small town, they used to do all these like great. It was awesome because like you just go to like this giant park and it wouldn't be like a ton of people, and I mean like the fireworks were like right above you. It's pretty sick, honestly. Like especially you get really super high and you just like lay down on the grass. and they're just like, I mean, it's pretty. Like you literally get a front row seat, and you're not sharing it with like 100 people in like a little tiny space. It's like a gigantic park with like 1,000 people spread over like, a mile or something. It's pretty just totally different than here where it's like, traffic jam to get there. You got to find parking like a mile away and hike in, and then you got to leave 30 minutes early so you can actually get to your car and leave before, all the drunk people are blocking the roads and shooting fireworks, and you know what I mean? It's like, oh my God, like just make it a nightmare. Like it's not even about being old or not. Like I never liked that stuff even when I was a kid. I was like, this sucks. I like the low key. I like the low key kind of stuff. You ever been to a warehouse party before?
No.
Really? Wow. I went to some a lot, like for like Halloween and like stuff like that. Like in many years ago when I used to actually know people. They would go to like Oakland and like you go to this like hood where like people are living in these giant warehouses, and so you have like all these black people outside like barbecuing at like 3 o'clock in the morning, and you go inside. There's just like this giant party, and like it's like a house. It's like a warehouse that got converted into a house. Like the people live upstairs, and they're throwing a party downstairs, and then you go in like San Francisco, and they have like these basement warehouses, like underneath, like a Latin restaurant or something, and there's like all these people salsa dancing at like 2 o'clock in the morning. I don't think that stuff exists anymore. I mean, maybe it does, but it seemed like all that stuff kind of went away at some point. But and then I went to another one that's like it's like a weird like Halloween party that like, you're walking in the middle of like this industrial area in San Francisco, and then you like turn down this dark alley, and it looks like you're gonna get like killed. But then you open the door, and it's like this giant warehouse where it's like different rooms set up, and they're probably rolling on ecstasy or something, I guess. I don't know, but the music's just way too loud and everything. But then you could tell there's like a bunch of Jewish guys with like their women, and they're kind of like handing out drugs to people, but they don't want anybody to see because they don't know who's really in their party or something. It's pretty weird. I only had maybe those 3 experiences with that, but it's kind of it seemed. I mean, like I like the idea of like that. I just don't like drugs. Like I'm not a drug person. Okay. See, my Discord's not opening, so I'm just trying to kill time. Why I had to like exit it. I had to like hard stop it and then reset it. So all right, now we're good. All right, cool. Let's jump over to Discord, and because I have like a lot of really good clips, and I'll see if Unseen will come back because he needs to see some of these too for sure. I think he saw some of them, but he'll definitely want to see a couple of these. Like, let's see. To the Discord if you can. All right, cool. Yeah, I'll jump on there and I'll play a song for like 5 seconds and for like a minute, 5 minutes, and then we'll just jump into it. So we have time to switch over. All right, cool. All right, let's see.
But